In 2022, I reviewed over 40 different basketball shoes, but this is my top 5. Roll it. Getting us started at number 5 is the Nike Cosmic Unity 2. And I swear I did not do this on purpose, but this is the second year in a row that the Cosmic Unity is making my top 5, and it's in the same spot as last year's model at number 5. I just kind of go through every shoe that I've done and kind of move them around up and down my list until I have them ranked 1 to 40, because I literally did 40 plus shoe reviews this year. And whenever it was all said and done, like I took my top 5 and these hit that 5 spot again. So I'm done wasting time now. This is a longer video anyways. That was more so just like funny or kind of like surprising to me. Also, a quick warning, I did review these while I was in the middle of dealing with my fractured hand, so the action shots kind of are what they are. Now to the actual shoe. So the Cosmic Unity 2 is going to retail for $160. That is right in line with the first release, so no price jump to worry about there. And I love the look to this year's shoe. And this is one of Nike's basketball lines where they use sustainable materials, just meaning that these were made up with at least 20% recycled content by weight. So that is like just a really sweet concept. I like whenever shoes do that, and who wouldn't? It's great for the planet. So now on to more the performance side. I'll kind of start off with the cushioning first. And that is a spot where these took a lot of what was being used, like for the actual cushioning tech from the ones, and they did put them into the second model, but still it does feel a little bit different. So the Cosmic Unity 2 gets a full-length Air Zoom Strobel, which is going to have some foam in the midsole that's there to provide good energy return. Then Nike also puts in the product details for this shoe, how it's meant to give you like a pillowy feel, and they definitely do. Like, this is one of the few shoes to make this list that have, more of a top-heavy feel, like just meaning that the forefoot does have some extra bounce in there that you can feel just, on pretty much all of your movements. And I personally like shoes that play that way, as long as the heel doesn't lack, and it doesn't on these. Like, cushioning is definitely one of my favorite spots for this model. But now going ahead and moving on to like the materials and the support, I kind of already talked about how these are using that recycled content, but the upper on the Unity 2s is going to be a little bit more thinned out compared to the ones last year. Like, those did seem to be a little bit more layered, but this is going to be, it was also a heavier model to play in. I actually never really got to officially weigh them, but I could kind of just feel that. We didn't have our scale yet, but now we do. In the Cosmic Unity 2, it's only going to weigh 398 grams for a size 10.5, and that's definitely below average, like just in general. Then add to that the fact that these are like mid to high tops, and that makes these shoes like super light to move around in, but the upper does still feel very, very durable, like that whatever material that they use there just like holds your foot together super well. So support is something that I just haven't struggled with on this model at all. And the Nike swoosh on the upper kind of helps keep your foot from like sliding outside of the like footbed of the shoe, so I did love that. And just with this being a higher setup for a basketball shoe, you're going to have some extra ankle security, so nothing to worry about with the support. But to finish off with the traction, the Cosmic Unity 2 gets a thin, durable outsole that uses some rubber to provide good on-court traction. And this is designed to help contain you for like those sudden changes of movement and keep you contained when you're trying to shake free from the defense. It's kind of how Nike lays it out there for you. So the pattern is definitely a little bit different. Like, it kind of reminds me of some fish bones, but these fish bones play really nice. Like, the traction is like a really solid piece on the Cosmic Unity 1, and that does continue on here with the Cosmic Unity 2. Like, the outsole is going to be made up of a little bit of a different type of rubber compound though, and it honestly just doesn't make a ton of noise on the court. Like, we found that out whenever we were doing our squeak test. We weren't really getting a lot of sound on the court, but that doesn't really reflect how this shoe plays. Like, the outsole is also going to be durable, so outdoors will be an option for this shoe. But overall, once again, I just couldn't find a reason to leave off the Cosmic Unity from this list. Like, the model holds up well on all fronts, and you got the recycled content used in there, so that definitely gave them some brownie points. Pretty affordable price at $160 on top of all of that, which is what helps them get a spot at number 5 on this year's list. The second shoe to make my list, coming in at number 4, is the Nike Air Zoom GT Cut 2. This is sort of a callback to the GT Cut 1, which actually topped my list of best shoes to hoop in from 2021 a year ago, and in some ways I like these even more. So the model name GT is like an abbreviation for greater than. That's what this model falls under, and they did release with 2 other shoes, the GT Jump and the GT Run. All 3 shoes in this pack, if you want to call it that, they kind of cater to different styles of play, and I thought that was pretty cool. So like, the GT Jump is going to be there to help with your impact protection and focuses more on like your bounce and your spring. The GT Run is going to be there for like energy return and like those movements and stuff like that, more so for when you're running. But the GT Cut, and I guess now the GT Cut 2, is going to be made to keep you lower to the ground, to keep those change of direction movements just a little bit easier. So the first time around, the GT Cut was my favorite model to play in out of the 3 they released from that line. And now we only have the GT Cut 2 out right now. There's no GT Jump Run or Jump 2 yet, so I can't say for certain, but the GT Cut 2 has a shot at being my favorite favorite again, like a really good shot. And I am kind of partial to low tops too, so I do like the look of these the most. But they did keep the same retail price at $170. The other two models are a little bit more expensive, but you know, not by a lot. But now I'll kind of transition into the actual breakdown, and we'll start off talking about the cushioning first. So there were a lot of cushioning features in the GT Cut 1, and really I love the setup between like the Nike React, they had a strobel unit, some sort of like zoom air in the heel, and a bunch of like different stuff like that just played good on that model. These are a little bit different as far as like the actual tech specs go, but the GT Cut 2 is still going to be using some Nike React technology that's going to be paired with a parabolic air zoom strobel cushioning that's also stacked with some zoom air units in the heel to help provide the responsiveness when you need to create space and opportunity off the dribble. And the Nike React insole is there to provide support and some comfort. A soft foam in the midsole also offers some like a stable underfoot experience. So I mean, that's kind of like your summary for what's on the inside of the shoe, kind of how Nike breaks it down. I mean, of the 5 shoes on this list, this is arguably like my favorite feel whenever it comes to comfort alone. Like the GT Cut 2 is super bouncy. Like right whenever you slide these on, the front half of your foot just feels elevated a lot, and you can feel those units like compress and give you a ton of energy return on any of your jumps, any of those movements. And for a shoe that feels this loaded in the forefoot, sometimes the heel can be a little bit underwhelming, but that zoom air unit in the heel gives you a really nice feel whether you're playing indoors or outdoors with this model. Our durometer reading came in a little bit higher at 46, which does put these like on the slightly more stiff side, but that doesn't reflect how these play at all. Like cushioning is easily one of the highlights on this model. But moving on to the materials and the support, there's like a bit of a change between like the GT Cut 1, how they looked and how they just feel compared to the GT Cut 2. So the whole upper construct on these is actually inspired by a butterfly with this like inner cage just built into the lining underneath. And the whole point of that is to like reduce the weight of the shoe and help you take off in an instant. It's kind of how Nike says it again. And the GT Cut 2 is relatively light with a size 10.5 weighing 422 grams. That's not super light, but like nowhere near heavy. And then now looking at more of the support, that butterfly upper is also going to be there, but there's also going to be a few different support features to go along with that. So the GT Cut 2 is also going to have some laces that just run directly through the medial and the lateral webbing loops to add some forefoot support. And then on the back of the shoe, you're going to get a stiff clip around the heel that does help lock your foot in over the cushioning system. The one potential knock though that I had on these was some minor heel slippage. And I noticed that a little bit early, but just like with the KD15s, I mean, those had the same type of like feel in my opinion. Just lacing these up like, you know, pretty tight, that solved like all of my problems for me. And normally a shoe with like a minor flaw like that wouldn't make my top 5 list, but these are just like that solid everywhere else, including the traction, which is what I'll finish off with right now. So looking at the pattern, Nike calls this a smear traction 1.0 pattern, and it's meant to help you briefly stick to the ground and then like also use other directional traction to help you dig your toe in and out of it so you don't get stuck. So it's easy to see and it's even easier to feel just how deep and tough these grooves are. Like they look like mountaintops, like just so thick, so deep. They come super high up on the shoe. And I mean, just like the GT Cut 1, the traction is like super strong on there too. Like these shoes are super sticky. They make like, they definitely make some noise too. Whenever we were doing our squeak test, these shoes were singing on the court. And that just kind of helps confirm that the traction is going to be excellent on this model. So overall, the greater than shoe line is one that I've really enjoyed like testing out, but the GT Cut model itself has been my favorite to play in. And the GT Cut 2 specifically has a really great like on-court feel. And if you're someone who likes to play in like, you know, those more top heavy or front loaded shoes, and that would be me. Like I definitely love those springy models. The Nike Air Zoom GT Cut 2 would be perfect for you, which is what lands him at number 4 on my list. Next up at number 3 of top 5 shoes from 2022 is the Li-Ning Way of Weight 802 Ultra. People don't like whenever I call it that. So if you guys want a quick laugh, I did call these the Li-Ning Way of Weight in my actual shoe review by accident, and people kind of lost it in the comments. It's pretty great, so feel free to go and check that out. But I mean, this is really one of my favorite shoes to release this year for a few different reasons. Like first, the Way of Weight actually sent these to us to review. That's the first time that that's ever happened to us here, so that was a huge honor. People don't really seem to believe that happened in the comments either from that video, but it's kind of be a weird thing to lie about out of nowhere, but it's all good. The second reason that I love these is honestly because I've never tested out a shoe from Dwayne Wade's line. And I know that Li-Ning is based out of China, so I just wasn't really sure about like the shipping, the pricing, anything like that. Apparently the brand pronunciation either, but these quickly turned into one of my favorite shoes to hoop in. The Way of Weight 802 Ultra retails for $159 on their site. Call it $160 if you like round numbers. And this is the Ultra variation of the 802 model. The non-Ultra version is like, you know, they don't have this like sock liner piece that you kind of see come up from the side. Some other other things might be a little bit different too, and you can get those for cheaper down at 120. So pretty average on the price right now for these, and we're kind of sticking in that 160 to 170 range so far for these shoes. That is where a lot of the better performing shoes kind of fall into. But I mean, of all the shoes on this list, this is probably like my favorite for the appearance alone. Like the Way of Wade has like this futuristic or just kind of like this high quality design to their models, and I like it. But now kind of jumping into the performance, this is the first shoe like on this list to feature a more balanced cushioning setup. I mean, I'm used to kind of dealing with, you know, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. This is a little bit different to me than like, you know, some of those mainstream brands as far as the tech specs go. But as for the actual cushioning tech, the 808-2 Ultra features a one-piece drop-in boom midsole that features a more responsiveness, and it's just meant to be bouncier than before. And this purpose is kind of reduce the weight of the shoe while getting you more in like the direct feel of the bounciness and those push forces. That's kind of how Way of Wade lays it out there for you on their site. And from the second that I put these on, I could just tell this was going to be a super comfortable model to play in. Like I said, this is a balanced setup, so don't really feel much of a difference from the front to the back. But the heel is almost like extra padded though. Like it's kind of reverse from what I'm used to, but it feels super great. Then using our durometer to check out the midsole, these were reading at a 40, and that pretty much is right on average for like basketball shoes that I played in. The sock like fit does feel good though too. Like I like how that plays. And then that leads me to the materials, and that's a spot where these seem just like a little bit better than some other shoes that I've played in. The bulk of the upper is going to be made out of like this breathable net that's pretty thin and it's a little bit stretchy, but it can't stretch too much because there's like this plastic casing over the top that does help restrict you from like moving more than you should. And then around the edges of the upper is going to be this overlay that kind of helps with durability so you don't damage the shoe whenever you like toe drag or something like that. I guess now we're starting to talk a little bit more about the support section, and there is going to be more to go along with that. So looking at this carbon fiber setup, I think this is like really sick. It's labeled on the shoe kind of around the heel where you see that carbon fiber plate text, and carbon fiber is what helps keep the shoe intact while also propelling you forwards. And then you can see like that shiny carbon fiber piece kind of on the upper that's mixed in with like the carbon fiber, and that's like all part of like this heel counter that is meant to like cradle your foot, and the upper like locks you in like a mini seat belt, because on top of all the other support stuff that I've been talking about, there's another support feature to go along with that, but it's really like just the rest of the shoe. All of the laces kind of feed through this big overlay, like so you're gonna have the sock like piece underneath, and then like the whole design kind of wraps on top of that just to give you really nice containment. And you'd honestly think these shoes would weigh a ton like with all that stuff going in there, but they just don't. A size 10.5 weighs 430 grams, and just like the durometer reading, like that's pretty much right on average with other basketball shoes that I played in. So I guess it's not super light, but it's definitely not going to be heavy. And then to finish off with the traction, I'll actually give you a shot at the pattern first. These have like the Way of Wade logo kind of built in there with the lines kind of branching out. And on the site, they pretty much just say like the grip is supposed to be incredible for every direction so that you aren't wasting any steps. And honestly, that's all they needed to say whenever you know it's definitely true. Like I like these a lot, but like traction might be my favorite part about this shoe. And this is easily one of the squeakiest models that I've ever played in. Like they were squeaking on the way to do our squeak test, so clearly they were going to be squeaking during it. And for whatever reason, I just haven't noticed these collecting as much dust as some other shoes that just have some bite like this. So overall, I mean, if you're like me and you've never played in or tested out like a Way of Wade shoe and you're looking for one to get into, the 808-2 Ultra is a great start. Like they're actually sending me another pair of shoes to test out again. So it's just a major shout out to Li-Ning and Way of Wade. Like this is pretty much the first brand to kind of actively work with us. But as for this model, like from the cushion to the traction, support, and especially the look, these are sweet, and that's what lands them at number 3 on my list. The runner-up and coming in at number 2 on my list is the Air Jordan 36 Slow. Of course, I reviewed these while I was like a few weeks into my fractured hand, so be ready to deal with more of those one-handed action shots whenever they come up. But for the Jordan 36 Slow, I was honestly a little bit hesitant to put these on this list because I do know that the Air Jordan 37 is more of like this year's shoe to release from that line, but I did not like those. And for whatever reason, the Jordan 36 Slow released in May this year, making them eligible for this list. And here they are. So first, I mean, one thing I like about this low variation, if I can talk, is like they're actually cheaper than like the original version. The Jordan 36 Low retails for $175 compared to $185 for the originals go for. So I definitely like the look for the Jordan 36 more than like 37s too that released this year. I mean, there's no eclipse plate. The 37s just kind of look like a boot to me, but I'll kind of stay focused on the Jordan 36 and go straight into the cushioning. So these are going to get a Zoom Air unit in the forefoot that's there to give you cushion for your foot while also adding an extra burst of response responsiveness. And if you look at these from the bottom, there is like that section that's like kind of outlined in the forefoot of the shoe, and that actually like expands or like kind of protrudes out from the model, and that just kind of shows you where that cushioning unit is at. And then, you know, we're back to those front-loaded cushioning setup just for like how the shoe plays, but I'd maybe say it's not quite going to be as front-loaded or like as bouncy as the GT Cut 2, but it's definitely pretty close. And the sock binder has a super plush feel that just leads to a really nice playing experience on the court. Then moving on to the materials and the support, this is like they did like throw some suede pieces and stuff like that on the Jordan 35, but after doing that, these are going to have more of like a synthetic leather upper that's going to be paired with a dynamic flexible tongue. And the toe box is like pretty much see-through, so you know that the airflow is going to be really great for your foot. And the material is going to be a little bit more thin, but it's also kind of layered, so the upper still isn't going to move. And without like a strap, you know, outrigger, just something to like really solidify the support, these still keep you locked in really well. And then jumping down like between like the outsole and the midsole is going to be that hollowed out section, and that exposes a stabilizing shank, which is just like a piece of plastic that's there to help keep the shoe intact. But that exposed setup also helps reduce the weight of the shoe, so these are going to be pretty light, weighing 400 grams for a size 10.5, and that's not bad at all. That is only down like 10 grams from the original Jordan 36, but if you put the Jordan 36 and the 36 low like side by side, there really isn't much of a height difference there that I noticed, so that kind of does check out. But wrapping it up with the traction, these are going to have a multi-directional traction pattern. It's pretty much, you know, just like a traditional herringbone setup with the arrows kind of covering the shoe, and the traction's just yet another strong point on this model. Like whenever we were doing our squeak test, these are just like catching the floor really well, and that's what I felt like during my on-court movements. During my step backs, making cuts, I just haven't felt like any slipping at all. And the outsole rubber does feel pretty durable, and the cushioning has you know, more than covered for an outdoor surface. So even though this is like sort of a callback to last year's model, honestly, I mean, the Jordan 36 low, it was just too good to not make the list. Like this is just one of those like basketball shoes. One of my favorites from last year, and I got to recycle and use it again this year, so I had to get them a spot at number 2 on my list. Finishing off this list at the top of the food chain for the second straight year is the Puma MB.02 or the MB.02. However you prefer, these shoes go crazy either way. This is LaMelo Ball's second straight signature shoe with Puma. I mean, he's the only player with like an active shoe line with Puma right now, so I feel like he's getting a lot of the attention, and that has been translating into some great performing basketball shoes. And this is easily the cheapest shoe to make the list, retailing for $130. That is actually up $5 from last year though, so something to keep an eye on there with him price jumping after only one model. But so far, I've just like loved the design for his model. Like they switched it up a little bit this year, and now there's like some angel wings kind of covering the upper, but pretty clean in my non-professional opinion. But now we'll kind of get into the performance side of these shoes. So Puma didn't really change a lot whenever talking about the cushioning setup for this year's model. The Puma MB.02 has a nitro foam infused midsole built for superior responsiveness and comfort while remaining lightweight, giving you something perfect for high energy and explosive play styles. And these kind of like that's like kind of the cushioning tech that they put in there for you. And this is just one of those shoes that, I mean, like right whenever you're sliding your foot into the shoe, you just feel the cushioning hitting you from like every direction. The padding underneath your foot is really soft. The whole sock binder is just infused with this super plush feel. And at first I thought Puma maybe added a little bit of spring to the forefoot on these, but the more I'm playing them, it's just really not there. But this is going to be, you know, more of a balanced setup, but they just feel super great. Like the impact protection is really solid. I played them outdoors before I, you know, ended up taking them inside, and even on a concrete surface, that soft feel is still there whenever you're coming down from a jump. And then using our durometer to check out the midsole, like just to check out the firmness of the midsole, these were reading at a 38.5, and once again, that is going to be like right about at the average for basketball shoes. That is down almost 10 from the Mellow Ball ones though, so you do have that. But these are far from average whenever it comes to cushioning. Like there aren't many shoe lines out there that are more comfortable than LaMelo's right now. That's what I'll say for the cushioning section. But now moving on to the materials and the support, these have what Puma calls a disruptive upper construct made with an engineered woven mesh material and multi-zone mixed materials for targeted support, comfort, and breathability, all in a lightweight package. So that's a lot of stuff there. Let's go ahead and unpack that now. So the upper definitely does have a similar feel to the ones, but the Mellow Ball 2 is like in this toe region, it does kind of crease a little bit weird whenever you're running. It's a little bit noticeable, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it like uncomfortable. There just is some creasing in that spot. But aside from that, these feel super nice. Like, and they even got lighter. A size 10.5 weighs 436 grams, which is on the lighter-ish side for a mid-top shoe. Definitely not a heavy model, and they are down like 30-40 grams from the Mellow Ball 1, so I did like that. But the support is super nice on these two. A lot of times mesh uppers can get a little bit iffy on the support, but this mesh, just like some of the other shoes, is going to be super layered. It's definitely not like a thin feel to the upper. And you do have a nice TPU heel clip on the back where you have that like wing and that halo setup, but you aren't going to see a lot of actual support features on this model, like midfoot bands, you know, outrigger, no overlays or anything like that. But still, it's just like a nice supportive feel. You don't have any heel slippage, no unnecessary foot movement. The Mellow Ball 2 just plays nice for the materials and the support categories. And then finishing off this video with the traction, the pattern on these is a little bit different. Like last year they used some squares, but now you're going to see like a feather at the top, and that, I guess that's like a nod to Mellow's wing design. But you know, basically this is designed to give you full coverage using a engineered non-slip rubber compound with a full feather tread pattern for enhanced durability and traction, making these ideal for quick cuts and spot up jumpers. And I mean, I feel like we definitely saved the best for last for this shoe. Or I mean, it's really nice in a lot of different categories, but like traction is just like one of the best things. And traction, like the traction coming out of Puma basketball shoes right now has just been second to none. Like that non-slip rubber compound has been ridiculous. Like on the court, the grip that it gives you on the court is crazy. And I mean, looking at our final squeak test here, once again, like these shoes are just singing. I haven't had any struggles collecting dust, at least not nearly as bad as I did on the ones. That did kind of happen a little bit, but I am still kind of early in my playing experience with them. But so far, I've loved every single second of it. A super comfortable and an affordable model here, which is what earns them a spot as the best shoe to hoop in and the most well-rounded shoe to play in from 2022. That wraps up my list of top 5 performance shoes of 2022. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying any of the shoes that I hit on today, or if you guys want to check out our brand new merch that we're just starting to roll out, we're gonna have links down below or in our bio for that. Might be some links like showing up here on screen too, so you know, feel free to check those out. Also, I do have a few more top 5 videos coming out soon, so definitely be on the lookout for those. They should be rolling out in the next few weeks, but until next time, I'm Shoer. Peace.